Living with a host family abroad is a massive step outside your comfort zone. You're not only far away from your family or your home or your routine, but you're living with a family whose values and traditions might differ drastically from yours. It is unnerving, but it is a fantastic opportunity for you to immerse yourself in a new way of life. I've lived with two host families, one in Marrakesh in Morocco and another in Annecy in France. And both of those experiences have taught me so much. So to help you make the most out of your homestay experience, I'm going to share a few tips that I've put together based on my own observations. Before we get into the tips, I think it's important to acknowledge that homestays are not for everyone. If you're someone who craves independence and you want to do everything on your own terms all the time, then maybe you should consider a different accommodation type. But if you just can't resist wanting to be in a totally new, maybe even uncomfortable situation, learn so many new things, and maybe even fight that homesickness that you could have, then seriously consider living with a host family. I love the idea of homestays because, one, they can actually save you quite a bit of money. I mean, that's not the primary motivation, but it is a very important factor. I mean, think about it. You're literally sort of like an honorary family member. So it's a lot less hectic than having to do every single thing on your own because the family is going to be taking care of many of the expenses that you could have. Two, you're going to have access to homemade and authentic food. And if you're someone who loves to try new foods, what more could you ask for? Three, you automatically make new friends. Your host siblings and your host parents will show you around. They will show you the ins and outs of the place you're in. And on top of all that, they will take care of you. Four, you will have limitless opportunities to learn a new language just from watching the family interact and go about their day. And five, if you're someone who loves the idea of family or you crave family time, you are going to experience a unique taste of that. Okay, so having said all that, what are some good tips or useful pieces of information to keep in mind for your homestay? Tip number one, get your host family a gift before you go to stay with them. And this could be anything. It could be some handmade artwork from somewhere. It could be, souvenirs from your hometown. It could be books about your home country. Just get a nice, thoughtful gift, which sort of says, thank you for agreeing to take me in and take care of me for the duration of my trip. Tip number two, and this is probably the most important tip, establish open lines of communication with your host family. Living with a family means that you will be sharing not only their home, but also their everyday life. Be attentive, respectful, and open-minded when it comes to discussing house rules or any cultural practices or things that they may want you to adhere to. But don't be afraid to bring up any concerns you might have as well. Also, make sure you maintain personal boundaries. Yes, it's important to connect with your host family, to do what they're doing, get involved, but don't compromise your own integrity or values just to make other people feel comfortable. The family has their own expectations. You also have your own expectations. It's about finding the right balance. It's a nice middle ground where both of you can be happy and you can get the best out of your homestay. And of course, if you are extremely uncomfortable in your homestay, don't be afraid to request a change or to leave. No one is forcing you to stay there, and you have every right to make sure you are comfortable. I also want to add, keep in mind, miscommunications will happen. It's just a fact, especially if you're dealing with a language barrier. There are so many different factors. Just expect sometimes there will be miscommunications. And as long as they're not too major, it's okay. I remember during my homestay in France, it was just me living with this elderly lady, sweet lady. She didn't speak any English whatsoever. Thankfully, I could speak French, and the whole point of this trip was to actually improve my fluency levels in French, but I wouldn't say I was perfect in it. But I remember one time, it was a Friday, and she had asked me if I had any plans. It's Friday, you're young, you want to go out, drink, party, all that stuff. But this day I was so tired, and I literally wasn't sure if I wanted to do anything. So I told her, I'm not sure, I may not go out. I'm still trying to decide, but it's more than likely I will stay home tonight, right? I don't know if she didn't believe me or if I wasn't clear enough. But at nighttime, I decided I'm not gonna go, I was tired, so I went to sleep. Fast forward, in school on Monday, my professor comes to me and she's like, oh, you had a wild night on Friday, right? I was like, wait, what do you mean? She's like, we were looking for you throughout the whole of Annecy.
What do you mean?
She's like, yeah, your host mom called me so concerned in the middle of the night because you told her you were going out and you didn't come back home. She didn't hear the door when you came back home. I had to get out of bed at 2 a.m. in the morning and I started making calls just to find out where you were. And I was like, oh my goodness, like you didn't have to do all that because I was asleep. These sorts of miscommunications can happen. And thankfully that was just a harmless little situation, but it's just good to keep that kind of information in mind. Tip number 3, embrace the differences. While you're there, just try and take your time to learn and understand. Ask questions coming from a sincere place of wanting to know more and understand. Participate in family activities if they're, playing cards or whatever they're doing to hang out. Just be there, just see what's going on, try and get involved yourself. Celebrate any festivals or parties that they may have or they want to attend. They will feel more like opening up to you because you've shown genuine interest in their way of life. When I was living with my host family in Morocco, I happened to be there around Ramadan, and so the family would typically eat very late, especially preparing for Fajr prayer, which happens around sunrise. And even though I did know that this is how it typically works in most Muslim households, everybody is still up at night trying to eat to get enough energy ahead of the next day's fast, I hadn't actually lived in a setting where that was the norm. So at times where I should have been sleeping ahead of class the next morning, the family would invite me to come eat with them and just have a good time, see what they're doing. And I would do it because I thought it was important to just see and understand and also let them know that I'm in this with you so that everybody feels good about it. It was such a good bonding experience because everybody is kind of just on the same wavelength, there's just a good sharing and spread of energy in the house, and it really just helps to keep everybody happy. Tip number 4, contribute to the household. And this isn't necessarily financially, but just be present. You've come to this place, actually be there. Make an effort to contribute to the household chores or responsibilities. Offer to help cook, do the dishes after meals, offer to clean or water the plants, anything to help lighten the load of this family that has agreed to take you in. This not only shows your appreciation for the family, but strengthens your bond with them. Number 5, be grateful and express your appreciation. This goes without saying, but just simple gestures like saying thank you, or writing little heartfelt notes or getting small gifts over the course of your stay, it goes a long way. In addition to that, don't be self-entitled. Be sensitive to the family and the environment you're in. It could be that the living standards are not up to what you are used to. That's okay. This is their home and they're proud to call it that. If you're coming from a country with a strong economy where there's constant power supply and very clean tap water, and you're going to a place where that might not be the case, that is bound to be challenging for you. But what is important is how you react to that situation. It is important to differentiate between the factors that the family can control and the factors that they cannot control. Don't act like you're doing them a favor by staying in their home. But having said all that, that doesn't mean that you shouldn't speak up if you have pressing concerns. And the final tip is just a simple one: stay in touch after the homestay. So those are all the tips that I've put together, and I think if you follow these tips, you will be well on your way towards making lifelong memories, friends, and just growing as a person. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.